A very warm welcome and good evening to all to the day one of APAC EdTech Higher Education Innovation Conclave. We had an amazing we have an amazing panel for to discuss on a topic which is very important, that is new vision for higher education in large, well-resourced multidisciplinary institute. And to do a fruitful discussion, we have speakers from across the country from various well-known institutes. So join me before I call upon just to give the brief of today's uh, proceedings. We had an amazing uh, inaugural session with participation from the Commissioner and Secretary of Telangana Higher Education and Technical Education Department, Mr. Naveen Mittal. We were also joined by Dr. Pankaj Mittal, Secretary General AIU. We were also joined by Mr. Professor Sudheer Jain, who is the Director for IIT Gandhinagar. After that, we had a special unveiling of Tech 100 Higher Education Institution listing of India. We could come out with a special issue who are doing well in integration and the use of technology in higher education. So after that, we had a panel discussion, presentation by call Paul by Mr. Shivang Abhishek, and panel discussion on building world-class digital campuses. Another role of tech and blended learning, leveraging digital platforms in higher education, and now one of the most important, that is the higher education in large, the new vision. So join me in welcoming our esteemed speakers, Mr. Sidharth Sablania, who's the entrepreneur in residence from Collegedunia. Thank you very much, Sidharth Sablania, for joining. I appreciate Dr. A. Garg, who's the director, KIET Group of Institution. Thank you very much, Dr. Garg, joining us. Uh, Professor Sanjiv Marwah, who's the director for JK Business School. Thank you very much for joining us. And Dr. Ravi Kumar Jain, who's the director for Symbiosis Institute of Business Management from the state of Telangana, Hyderabad. So I would like to have initial remarks from each of the eminent speakers. So that is mainly the what is the vision they have given the new challenges in the new normal. I should start with Sidharth Sablani. Over to you. Your views, Mr. Sidharth.
All right. So thanks, Sudheer. Thanks everyone for having me here. First of all, so like the topic for today is new vision for higher education in large, and we are discussing about like particularly about multidisciplinary institutes and like what will be the future. So firstly, I think we should be discussing about like what is it, what is the thing that we are discussing about. So what is the need for this thing? What is the need for multiple discipline, right? So as we understand, like we all have studied in the past, we all have done our undergraduation. So during undergraduation, like traditionally, the focus has been only on the core courses that we are studying. But now, as we have learned, and the society also is improving, we have understood that okay, focus on one particular subject or focus on one particular field or discipline is not helping the society at large. So first of all, that is the thing, and also like in line with what we were just discussing, that all these changes have now been incorporated in the national education policy as well. So that is why the government has released NEP 2020, where they are saying that every district, like in our country there are over 700 districts, so all these districts should have at least one large institute which focuses on multidisciplinary education. So that is the kind of focus that we have right now. And now coming to the challenges, like what will be the challenges in having this kind of a thing. So again, like when we are talking about multiple disciplines, so the focus has to shift from the core thing. So from like by focus, I mean like focus of the students, focus of the parents who are involved, then also focus of the institutes, and lastly focus of all the other, like so focus of the parties that are involved after the student graduates. So like it can be a corporate, can be higher educational institutes. So again, everyone has to shift our focus from what has been the traditional approach to a newer multidisciplinary approach, right? Secondly, also like now the challenge, primarily the challenge lies at the institutions part, where the institutions have to strike the balance in terms of, okay, like this has been the course structure, this has been the way how things have gone previously, and now what we want to do is like, okay, introduce certain courses, introduce certain more courses, introduce credit based grading system, introduce, we have to strike that balance so that the student is also learning in a fruitful way, and whatever is output, that is in line with what the industry wants. And for that, there are various aspects that will come in, and I'm sure that we'll discuss during this complete discussion. Why we need like faculty training. So again, like we need to have, one thing is obviously the curriculum. Secondly, faculty should be also aligned with this, and also like, how will the things go from students' point of view. So all these things the institute needs to define properly, and that's how we can actually improve. And so like coming to my experience part, so like I've graduated from IIT Delhi. I've done my BTech there. So when we are doing engineering, so we have courses of humanities, we have courses of economics, we have courses of management as well, which are sort of core courses which we have to complete. And so maybe that contribution of those courses was very less. Like when I graduated in 2014, so at that time it was only 10% of the courses which we have to do out of engineering. But right now, if I have to compare it, it would be around 40%. So we can see like even the premier institutes are moving towards that, and that's the focus of government as well. So definitely this shift is coming. Now we can obviously discuss about the challenges and how we can improve. So I think, yeah, we can ask them. Uh, you are on mute. Sudheer, you are on mute. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Siddharth, for sharing your vision and the views that your organization is up to. Now, I would like to call upon Professor Sanjiv Marwah to share his views. Over to you, Mr. Sanjiv.
Thank you for having me here. My name is Sanjiv Marwah. I'm the director of JK Business School. Why do students come to campuses? They come to campuses because campuses, collect the theoretical base, collect into information, knowledge, and share it with the students. Now, for many, many years, we have been collating information that's available to us from the industry and taking it to the classroom. There has been challenges, and there has been many challenges in the past, largely because of the disconnect between the industry and the academia. But some of them are being addressed. And the one question which has always been asked is the placement the right indicator for the success of institutes? Many times we presume that perhaps this is the right indicator. But many studies have shown that this could be a spurious indicator as well, because the students might have excelled, they might have taken up certain specialized courses, picked up certain specialized content online, or prepared themselves pretty hard for these jobs that they are getting. So where is the catch? For years, for decades, I would say, colleges have been packaging courses for the students in the name of streams. Good idea. Perhaps it saves a lot of costs. It provides a bouquet to the student to pick up. I'm specializing in finance, I'm specializing in marketing, HR, analytics, and they tend to pick up those streams. I'm grateful to my professor, who was the dean of FMS, from whom I learned about 2 decades back that the colleges can probably provide open specialization. Let the students pick up the kind of courses they would like to choose and specialize into the areas, or specialize the way they would like to specialize in for the corporate career ahead. I started copying this idea of FMS about a decade back, and of course we had a lot of doubts in the mind of students. Will my specialization will be considered as being finance specialized or HR specialized if I don't pick up 5 courses or 4 courses? And this question has always been my campus. I'm glad that this question today is out in the open, and we are discussing, should we be doing the packaging for students, or should we leave it to the students to package their certifications, diplomas, degrees on their own? I think the world has already decided, and the open credits system and the choice based credit system is accepted widely across the planet now. I am glad that the new education policy is also supporting that, and we could be watching the migration of students, we could be watching selection of the courses by students, we could probably have degrees where student could pick up music and mathematics together. And why not? About 200 years back, this world had these combinations. So why is that today we have decided to package them all together? Yes, we do understand in the zeal to succeed, colleges need to package their programs well. Certainly, yes, but not at the cost of the learning mind who would like the choice to be kept to himself or herself rather than being made by the institute. And I think today I'm so glad that this discussion is taking place where we are talking about who should choose the courses and should a student be permitted to design his own certification or diploma or degree. I think with the new policy in place, I'm sure this deliberation will continue to happen over next few weeks, few months, or perhaps couple of years. And the students in the coming years would take benefit of the options being extended to them. Decisions are never easy. They could find taking decision in this context really challenging, and I have seen it closely in my institute in the last few years. But at least the choice now rests with the student. We could have certifications with nomenclature, whatever might be the nomenclature, but if students can study music and mathematics together, I think we would have achieved what a new liberalized education policy is all set out to be. I am keen to listen to my other professors who are running higher institutions, large institutions, and who would now, by this policy, would like to open their curriculums to them. It would add up cost. I understand as an education provider that when you increase the number of courses, some cost does up, but it's absolutely fine because if the cost is going up, the degree is getting wider, the choice is getting wider, the benefit will come to the learning student who has come to our campus to be a wonderful, better, beautiful mind when he completes his 3 to 4 theoretical perspective years with us. Thank you very much for picking this topic, and I do hope we would deliberate much on this today and tomorrow and in coming years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Sanjiv. As you rightly said, there could be a combination that the students have their choice as. You rightly mentioned 200 years back, there was a choice of a combination of music as well. Uh, and Mr. Sidharth has rightly mentioned that there needs to be a multidisciplinary focus rather than a singular approach. Now, I would like to call upon Dr. A. Garg, Director, KIET Group of Institution, to share his views. Over to you, Dr. Garg.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sudheer. Good evening, all of you, please. I'm Dr. Garg, the Director of KIT Group of Institutions. We are located in Delhi NCR, Ghaziabad. Now, the new vision for higher education. Now, I would like to say that, let me express what is my wishful thinking. If I have to lay the vision for my institution, what would be the ideal situation I would be looking forward? Now, this institution, which is located in Ghaziabad, it has got four schools: engineering, pharmacy, computer applications, and management. So I think I can very well relate the requirement of a interdisciplinary work as well as the multidisciplinary work. Since these four verticals are independent. Now, what is happening in the institutions, most of the institutions, including mine, in the private sector, and also those who are affiliated to the particular university, they are not autonomous yet. There are a lot of restrictions, there are a lot of inherent problems about going multidisciplinary. Now, ideally, I would like that if my engineering student, which encompasses the largest number of students in the campus, in case, for example, one mechanical engineering student or a computer science engineering student, now as of now, we have only the learning path on that particular stream only. Now, ideal situation would be if we have a kind of a multidisciplinary studies, and there would be some minors which could be selected, or we call it a departmental credits, electives and also the open electives, if they could be chosen from the other departments. Now, that is possible. There is certain amount of flexibility which is there in the curriculum, but then it is not being very popularly used. Now, what we would definitely want is at least the kind of a project works what is being allotted to the students, once they are in the final year. In case we could have those kind of a projects being the multidisciplinary nature, that is what the culture needs to be there right from the beginning. Now, if you see a engineering student, if he joins a particular college, his selection of that particular branch is not dictated by, what is his interest. His selection depends on what are the market needs, which has got a more potential. For example, computer science engineering. Even if the student has not done anything, he does not know anything about computers, but his natural choice in the engineering is the computer science engineering only. Now, this is what is a very major problem in all the engineering institutions. Now, we need to go multidisciplinary, and why only between the branches? I say that we should even cross the boundaries of the branches. Like for example, in the campus, I've got a pharmacy, I've got a management, I've got computer applications. Why can't a student? He should have enough flexibility to select a minor or a subject from the finance team of the management department, or maybe if he's interested in the health sciences, he can pick up one subject from the pharmacy. That kind of a flexibility is actually required in the institutions, and that is what the students are looking forward to. Now, there are multiple problems in the implementation of this particular system in all the institutions. Now, what I initially mentioned, that the branch selection largely depends on the market forces. And second criteria is what do the parents want. And third comes the interest. Now, to my mind, in case we can have a system where the first year could be a kind of a freshman year, we can call it. There is no branch, there is no discipline which is there. In case we could have a system like that, let the student go through the experiential learning. He should try and exercise, what are the various options of engineering. What does the engineering look like? He will have to choose engineering. Let the engineering be a discipline. But what kind of a specialization he needs to do, what kind of a multidisciplinary work he has to do, that let him select, once he's there in the first year itself. Now, that is where probably a technology can be definitely of immense use. Now, ideally, what we would like, or any institution would like, a kind of a technological tool in case we can have using the artificial intelligence, where the interest of the student, what he wants to do in the first year, then his attributes, what are his strengths and weaknesses, what is his interest area, what kind of a job he wants to take. For example, in computer science engineering also, if he wants to go, what particular sub-discipline he wants to go, artificial intelligence or data science or machine learning. And in case we can have a algorithm, a kind of a entire path which can be defined, because the student today is very confused. He has got so much of pressure. There is a industry on one side says that the students are not industry ready, and also there is so much of pressure of the curriculum. So to ease all this pressure, in case a technology tool could be developed, that would be ideal for the academic institutions, which will give a lot of clarity, the student interest, and finally, the job what he's looking for. And in that job, in case in that entire roadmap, in case the university curriculum could be mapped, and what the kind of a deliverables or the different milestones which could be identified, what is not there in the university curriculum, but what is the need of the industry, those milestones could be identified, and the student project to solve the industry problems could be identified along that way. That is extremely important, because the whole curriculum is not revolved around solving the industry problem. We have got only about 25% of our entire curriculum which is focused onto the projects, solving the problems. 75% is the classroom teaching, while it should be the other way around. The whole issue is, in case we can have some 25 to 30% or maybe 40% is the study which is in the classroom, and rest should be the application based. Now, in case we could migrate to that kind of a learning, which will have a multidisciplinary, because once you're solving an industry problem, then you got to have a multidisciplinary students, attached to it. There could be a problem of the health industry where the pharmacy students could be there. Once you have to design a project, then you will need a finance student also. And so that kind of a flexibility, if you could have in the system, I think that would be the real success for the learning for all the student. And the student will stop attending today the students, they attend the classes just for the sake of attendance. I mean, this is the hard fact. Now, in case we could make our classes interesting using the artificial intelligence, giving additional hands to our faculty, a kind of a training to them, where they can make the classroom studies interesting. Those kind of tools, I think we can talk about all that in the next phase. But then this is the challenges, and that is how the whole vision of higher education needs to be translated to. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. These are my comments.
As rightly said, Dr. Garg, that there is a need of a blended learning, a blend of physical as well as digital classrooms and IT technology. So now I would come to Dr. Ravi Kumar Jain, Director SIBA. Over to you, Dr. Ravi.
Thank you so much, Sudheer. My greetings to the esteemed panelists. Very, very interesting points shared by Professor Sanjiv, Sidharth, and Dr. Garg. Let me start my 2 cents of contribution to this deliberation by, suggesting that look at the landscape of higher education in India. 40,000 plus colleges. Less than 10% are privileged to have so-called well-resourced. Less than 1% can claim to have some sort of multidisciplinary, if not a really, really big bouquet of offerings. And less than 1% can claim in terms of scale, a number of students and faculty and other things as large institution. Now, the vision, today's topic says new vision for higher education institutions that are large, multidisciplinary, and well-resourced. Perhaps these are the times of great opportunity for innovation-deprived higher education sector, I must say, if you allow me to say that. In the last 50, 60 years, or even, we can stretch to last 200 years, perhaps education sector, if we read that as another industrial sector, is the least innovative sector in terms of whether it is curriculum design or so-called the degree program design or the delivery models and so on and so forth. And in the context of India, we see the spectrum is much wider, where we have colleges deprived of even a solid roof. Forget about faculty, resources and all, or multidisciplinary at all. So on one hand, we have really, really rich urban, located in big cities, institutions which can really offer. So the problem statement for institutions at both ends of the spectrum are different. But here is an opportunity where technology can provide a level playing field, provided the higher education institutions and their promoters and leaders lap up the opportunity and look at it as an opportunity rather than a challenge. Another interesting perspective I would want to draw before I go into a few thoughts that I have about how do we go about this, adopting this change or capitalizing on this or leveraging on this new opportunities. Most of us know, or perhaps all of us know, what to be done. Education sector has to be reformed. There has to be multidisciplinary. There has to be flexibility in curriculum design. There has to be flexibility in curriculum delivery, and there has to be industry integration and so on and so forth. Less than a quarter of us know how to do it. And interestingly, less than 1% of us actually know or can do it. Again, I'm drawing 40,000, 4,440. So the idea is, unless we look at the opportunity as a point where we can transform, skip a trend, we don't need to move linearly, we can take a quantum leap, which is the need of the hour. And very interestingly, the new new education policy 2020 gives you that ammunition, gives you that thrust, give you that booster in terms of governance and regulation, which we have been as administrators for the last 20 years. I think we have been talking about this, saying that our hands are tied, and we want to do a lot of things, but we are not allowed to do, and so on and so forth. Now here the policymakers come and say, hey, you are let loose now, show us your creativity, come up with solutions which are great and which can transform the education system. The role of institution and role of faculty, both I would read in the same breath, and rather in the same I would say the objective to be delivered. In terms of the objective to be delivered is, earlier, I mean, all these days we have been, higher education institutions have been more of tutoring houses. Faculty also is instructed ki you deliver these courses, finish your curriculum, do the evaluation as per this set framework or standard or prescribed template, and do away with it. Some of the progressive institutions, like Marwah ji has mentioned, and Professor Garg also has mentioned about the initiatives that they have taken at their respective institutions, is where they said institutions should become more of an bed for allowing experimentation and self-learning and learning by discovery, where role of faculty should move from a tutor to a facilitator. And many of us have done it. As I said, the top 1% of the institutions, if you count, you will find these attributes there, where students enjoy this new way of learning. Here comes the next wave. Here comes the next level, where the role of the institutions should, or is expected to be, more of knowledge developers, knowledge generators, rather than knowledge disseminators. That's where the idea of integrating with industry, the practice and theory, or theory and practice, should be integrated at much deeper level. And the role of institution becomes to develop campuses or places of learning by exploration, learning by experimentation, learning by risk taking, learning by deep diving, and we call it in at our place in Symbiosis Hyderabad, called Shodh Yatra. And role of faculty equally has to be changed, or rather moved to next level, called mentor and a partner in learning, rather than even a facilitator or a tutor. Partner in creating knowledge, partner in facilitating research, partner in testing and challenging the existing constructs. As it is with the disruptions that caused by COVID and the related changes, the entire world, the industry is shaken up, and the so-called theoretical constructs, whether it is from economics or from management, are shaken up and challenged big time, whether they are fit enough now to address the challenges of industry in the new normal. If the existing constructs or the past constructs are not relevant, or not going to address or provide solutions for the challenges of the future, our role of higher education institutions would be to generate those new constructs, develop those new theories and philosophies. Now, it is easier said than done. Now, this is, if I borrow from what Dr. Garg has said, wishful thinking. Perhaps as a higher education institution administrator, I would wish that these things can be done. But the I would say the impediments, the roadblocks would be from mindset of administrators. Typically when we go into these conversations in our local administrators and institution what do you call promoters, they say ये सब चलता है यार, 50 साल से हम चला रहे हैं, ये बातें 2 साल चलेगी, फिर बाद में we are all normal. Now that's where the mental block is. I mean, we are not realizing what we are staring at. So the challenges range from mindset to infrastructure, mindset to scale, from scale to reskilling of your faculty. So every aspect of higher education institution need to be relooked afresh. We cannot build on the so-called foundations of the past, because past in terms of structure is, if I may use the word, or maybe be a little more louder, has rendered itself redundant in addressing the challenges of the future. And as I said, higher education institutions or higher education as a sector has been the least innovative sector. So forget the foundations, we have to build a new structure now. So for the administrators or the institution promoters, the challenge is it will disrupt their cost structure. When it disrupts the cost structure, how do you really rework on the fee structure and your revenue modeling and your, if at all, I mean, in India we are not allowed to use the word ROI, but that's the fact of the matter, that how do you rework on the numbers? How do we reconfigure our campuses? We are talking about blended learning, we are talking about hybrid campuses. Are we prepared to look at satellite campuses? Are we prepared to have students learn from multiple campuses of multiple institutions? Maybe Professor Garg's institution offers some really interesting courses in pharmacy, and my management students or MBA students want to pursue a couple of courses. Can I really allow them, or those folks who are from Delhi or NCR, can I allow them to go to KIET and say, okay, you pursue a couple of these courses and come back with those credits? NEP gives you ample flexibility for that, and the work is happening at a war footing. But as institutions, are we prepared? As administrators, are we prepared? Are we already have we started looking at the numbers? Have we started looking at our cost structures and so on and so forth? Rest all, which are more operational details, I would share as we go about in the discussion about whether it is tech enabled or tech driven, or what kind of tech infrastructure you should have, teaching, learning, pedagogy, on your loading of AI and deep tech and so on and so forth, faculty retrainings, delivery model reconfiguration, content strategy. Now another interesting thing, higher education institutions may actually have a strange competitors going forward, because all these days, again, allow me to borrow from what Professor Sanjiv mentioned, that we have been compiling knowledge from industry in terms of either textbooks or case studies and stories and so on. Now that content creation, suddenly we see a whole lot of tech savvy young startups popping up, providing you cutting edge content, visual content, 3D content, all sorts of, and in nice capsules. Our higher education institutions, are we capable of developing such content strategy? Where do we borrow content from now? What is our USP? Now let us relook at what is our USP. Is our USP the brick and mortar campuses that we have built? I am not very sure. Is our USP the designing of curriculum? I'm not sure. Is our USP the content? I'm not sure. Given what we are developing, I mean, higher education institutions are developing these days. What is our USP? We need to ask this fundamental question when we are starting or embarking on visualizing or re-envisioning the future of higher education, or developing a new vision for higher education. I think with these opening comments, I leave it to Sudheer and take the discussion forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ravi, Jain. As you rightly said, actually you have set the context for my next question. That is, we have an amazing vision, and we know what needs to be done, and we know what are the challenges. My question now would be, for the second round, is where do we stand now? Where do we stand? What are the challenges? And are we going to be like decades behind by other international and global standards? For this, I would like to come to Sidharth. Collegedunia is one of the latest technology-driven digitizing higher education. So, what is that you feel you have been for the last decade? Amazing works being done. what is that you see, what is that you experience on the ground
All
for the
right. So
vision?
yeah. All right. So thanks, Sudheer, for the question. So from talking from the point of view of Collegedunia. So Collegedunia is a education portal where students from all over the country, they search for various courses, colleges. They come on our platform and they get the right information and reviews about the same. Right. So, talking from the data point of view, so we also do a lot of research. We see, okay, what are the trends? What are the students searching? Because that is what is important for us also in the business. So what we have seen is there will be a student who would be in maybe in 11th class or 12th class looking for some higher education. And students right now, they themselves are very confused. So a student would be today, the one student will be searching for, let's say, an engineering course, but tomorrow that same student is searching for some other course. He's searching for a BA or a BSc course. So that is what is happening right now. So if we see the trend, so most of the students they are like very confused. So this particular data point, this is very important when it comes to a multidisciplinary course when we are having this discussion. So if we are having multiple disciplines, if we are giving the option to a student, so this is again like one of the challenge that we need to address, or we need to see, and we need to set the boundaries, set the structure in such a way, keeping this in mind that okay, is the student really ready to do various things? Because if you see from talking from a student's or a parent's point of view, the information is very limited. So students, as a student, like I think as Professor Garg also was mentioning, and we also have seen like students only know about computer science, or students only know about certain particular courses or degrees. So when we are actually giving the option to the student, is the student really ready for it? Will the student actually try various other things? So what Professor Ravi was saying. So for a student who is doing an MBA, maybe that person is more mature. But when we are talking about a student who is 17 years, 18 years old in school right now, he or she might not have the relevant information. So the whole point is like the information is very limited, and the student is at a stage where he or she might not be capable enough to take the decision about what is the courses or what are the different disciplines. So again, the institutions and the policy, the administration need to decide, okay, what is the kind of powers or what is the kind of flexibility that we are providing to the student. So one particular challenge is this information, and secondly, also like I think other people can add on to this, the challenges that come from the institute side, which Professor Ravi, Professor Garg, and also Professor Sanjiv have they have already covered, which is like, okay, what happens to the current infrastructure? So how do we remodel that, or how do we reconfigure that to incorporate this this kind of an approach? How do we reconfigure the curriculum? How do we make sure that okay, like till now, since last 40 years, we have seen this is the sort of curriculum, and based on this curriculum, based on this information only, students are taking a decision. So right now, if you see, like everyone is preparing for an entrance examination. People are not preparing for becoming an engineer. I'm preparing for becoming I'm preparing for clearing this entrance examination, and then this entrance examination will decide whether I'll become an engineer or not. And that's the information that people are searching. But what is going to happen next? Will there be some kind of a remodeling or restructuring in terms of how the students are how the student intake is happening? So will the intake also change, like how Professor Garg was mentioning about some sort of a algorithm or a software? So will there be a, again, like if we are actually defining a structure, so again, will that structure be same for coming 10 years? Again, we are going into that thing only. So these are some things like from a fundamental point of view, we need to see whether how we are actually going to do it, because no, on the surface of it, like I think we all agree, and this is a well-known fact that obviously multidisciplinary way is the way to go forward. But how do we actually define this? When can we give the responsibility to the student or the parent to decide this? And if we are giving, then okay, how do we categorize these students, or how do we actually say, okay, this particular student is eligible for this kind of a thing? So again, there are all these challenges are there from the selection point of view, or from students selection point of view. Secondly, from from colleges point of view, there will be various problems or the challenges which are in terms of faculty training, in terms of curriculum review, in terms of the whole structuring of how the courses and the complete credit and or a degree sort of a thing is being allotted to a student. And like going ahead also, like from, if we see from an industry point of view, so we agree that, okay, like, learning, we are giving the, we are giving the this option to the student. They can decide for themselves. But again, like, coming back to the first point only, so in what student wants and what the industry wants. So again, like, we also need to see like how the industry will evolve, how the corporates will evolve, how, because right now if you see, like, even corporates, they will have certain criteria. So okay, if you have to apply for this particular this, some designation, then you need to be at least, you have done this particular degree or some course, or some sort of a classification is there. And this is there in private as well as in government. So government is bringing these changes, but are there changes in this sector also? Like, so if I have to apply for a government job, so if I have done, let's say, half of a mechanical engineer and half of pharmacy, I've studied something. So what is the kind of jobs that I am eligible for? So over there also, we need to have the changes. So I think, like, if we see, so there are a lot of systemic changes starting from the student level to the institute and also at the industry level that we need to see in order to have this. And these are the challenges that I see. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sidharth, for sharing those challenges and also what is happening. Now I come to Professor Sanjiv Marwah. Sir, where is this, you as an institution? Um, what is the level of acceptance for this new change? And do we need to expedite the process of the kind of future we are looking for higher education in India? What is that needs to be done? And what are the best practices in your institution, and what is the level of acceptance?
Thank you for asking me this question. The kind of times that we are living in, I do not think we have a choice. There is no alternative. COVID has really advanced certain technologies very, very fast. In fact, the change has happened so fast that many of us were quite surprised with the pace of change. Professors have already mentioned, Raviji was very specific in things in saying that blended learning is something. It's not that we need to discuss anymore as we used to discuss in our parlays a few years back. It's already existent now. So institutes now do not have much of a choice, and fortunately, with the new structure of the education policy, there is no alternative left. You do it today, or maybe the time will anyway force you to do it 6 months, 1 year later. By that time, you could be very, very late in the kind of the reset of the industry and the reset of education that has already happened. I mean, since you mentioned about my specific institute, I can tell you that we also realized that what all we need to cover, what all students need to grab along with the certification. It cannot be compartmentalized into those 50, 54, 60 courses that we were offering, or maybe 90 optional courses that we were offering. And there is so much of learning, there are so much of courses available online, which can be made optional to the students, and they would be happy to administer those courses to themselves. Are we ready to give them credits for that? It's a call that we have to take, but the time has come. The institutions must start taking this call, that if you carry out an additional entrepreneurial live project, I am ready, willing to give you credits for that. If you decide to pick up, like we have signed up recently with LinkedIn Learning, and there are amazing courses from 1 hour to a couple of hours to 30 hours to 50 hours, and or I mean a Python for about 100 hours. And students are happy because they know that these are the courses which will land them and give them an edge over other classmates when it comes to looking for a job. And students are happy, but then as an institution, we have a huge challenge to identify these courses, give attribute credits to them, and make them available to students. Assessment would be done by LinkedIn Learning. It's absolutely all right if they are willing to give the certification, and if the student is going to take the certification on his LinkedIn profile. I think the time has come that we also must be prepared to give them credits for the courses they would have acquired spending efforts, because these are realities of the day. We cannot be hiding behind the courses that we offered, or you can choose this, or this one or that one, and these are the packages that we offer you. I do not think the blended learning experiences would go the same way as it was probably about a year back. This particular pandemic has reset which has happened is permanent in nature. There will not be much of choice. How do we do it? When do we do it? And the process that we follow. I'm sure many institutions like Dr. Garg has mentioned, engineering colleges would probably follow a different format. Undergraduate programs will follow a different format. Postgraduate programs will follow a different format. The formats could vary, but the process would remain the same. And I think that this particular discontinuity that we're talking about has already arrived. The entire remodeling of the education has to take place. And there are many ways to do it. There is no one standard way of doing it. And I'm sure various institutions will come out with their own perspectives. They would come out with their own plans. And many of them could be correct. It's too early to define one particular model that will suit a very large country like this. As Dr. Ravi mentioned, I mean, there are too many colleges, too many programs, too many institutions. They all might take different approaches, but the end line would be the same. Everybody has to accept that this is the new normal. We need to reinvent. We need to add up courses. We need to relook our choice-based credit-based systems, and we probably need to widen our offering. And some of our offerings might not be delivered through our professors. Some of them could be delivered by professors from other colleges, other institutes, other countries, professors of other countries, and we will probably have to learn to subscribe credits to those courses as and when they happen, or if our students are willing to get it, adopt those courses. Swayam is one initiative which has already happened. It's a government initiative. IIM Bangalore has opened a couple of programs. The willingness was low initially, but I think it's catching up now. And I'm sure this reality is something that all of us will work and learn from each other experiences, and probably will have a system in few years which would be in place. And as Dr. Ravi had mentioned that, what is our code could be redefined in the coming years. Let's be prepared for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Professor Sanjiv. Now I would come to Dr. Ravi. Dr. Ravi, we had amazing views from Professor Sanjiv, Dr. Garg, and also Sidharth Sablania from being from the industry. And I would like to know from you, if you can pack it up briefly, like what needs to be done in order to expedite this future vision for higher education. There is a need. There is a need for starting up a campaign. Of course, there is national education policy in place now. What is that you look at now to expedite this process?
I like when you said, pack it up briefly. I must say the first move towards this change is change the mindset. Unless we, as administrators, as higher education institution promoters, if we don't admit to ourselves that, yes, we don't know a few things, or, they say it is always good to know that you don't know, and also admit that you don't know. That's where the change happens. And perhaps these times, in terms of policy, in terms of market receptibility, in terms of this generation of students, all are eager to accept whatever new or innovation that you would bring on board. I mean, I've been watching, observing students. I mean, I'm sure we all must have experienced these things, and we all have a lot of stories to share. I've observed a lot of guys who are preparing for competitive exams actually prepared well using some online resources rather than depending on their faculty because they were not accessible. Suddenly they found a great comfort in that, saying that I think I'm okay, I can do better rather than going to campus. And they started calculating how much time I'm going to waste. Now, this is only indicating that the market, if at all we look at students or the student community as a market, the market is ready to adopt the change. Now we have to bring about the policies allowing you to change, we have to bring about? So the brief answer would be, we need to admit honestly that where do we lack, and what is that we need to learn, and take that first step, and that is where the change, massive change will happen. And one important aspect which perhaps can be a differentiator for institutions, because I left this question in my last opening, I mean, in my opening remarks, as what would be our core. I would say personalization should be the core of any higher education institution. Personalization of programs, as both my learned colleagues have mentioned, have a mix and match and give, there is no structured degree as such. You personalize the learning part and say you complete 100 credits, and then you say what is that you want to claim that you have specialized in, or you bring in a skill set, and let industry decide whether he fits in some vocation or not. Second aspect where institution can really play a pivotal role, or rather a differentiating role, is personalization of evaluation system. I know we have always been for the last few years seeing that cartoon which is shared on social media and on our WhatsApp groups. All of us might have seen that. Is where you have all the animals in the forest, and one monkey says that okay, the test for all of you to qualify to stay in jungle is to climb the tree. The fish has to climb the tree, the monkey has to climb the tree, and the elephant has to climb the tree, and so on. Now that's where the challenge lies. If we can rework on our evaluation or assessment model, where the focus should be on the depth of knowledge and breadth of application. Depth of knowledge by recitation and writing in a structured template, we have been doing it for ages. Now can we remove that template and say you test the depth of knowledge and breadth of application in multiple ways, and give a choice to students in which way he or she want to be evaluated or assessed. Somebody is good at reciting things or explaining things. Somebody is good at actually putting it on paper and writing a report about it. Somebody is good at actually doing and demonstrating it. Can we really look at that as a possibility? And when I'm talking about envisioning and loud thinking or visual thinking, perhaps this would be a differentiator for institutions. And very interestingly, the potential for, if I may use the word, the market words or business words, or the market potential or the business potential is humongous in the next coming 10 to 15, 20 years, is where the education, the UGC and NEP says that the enrollment ratio has to double from 25 to almost 50%. So we are talking about from the current 30 million plus students to 60, 65, 70 million. Because when you look at percentage, it is always on the base, that is the number of students in the specific age group. So we are talking about doubling or 2.5 times, 150% more than the current, right? So huge potential to do a great job. And another interesting thing is we don't need to really worry about the so-called international institutions, because the pandemic and the current disruption in education has brought all of us on the same page. They may enjoy a bit of a advantage in terms of their sophistication of access to knowledge, but technology today has neutralized that. We have the advantage of scale in India, and the institutions all across in the Western world, they thrive basically on 60% migrant students or students from international international students paying the double the tuition. So a lot of things are actually level played. The field is leveled. Now here is when we should go ahead and leverage on that. So regulation is in our favor. Policy is giving us enough direction and support and boost. Market is pretty ripe and ready to absorb change. It is let us take that first step towards the change. And I'm sure we are going to see a very, very interesting, I would say, education system and education sector on the other side of this change. I think that would be my answer. Though I didn't stick to your brief part of it.
Absolutely fine. Thank you very much, and glad to hear that we all are even Indian institutions and the global institution, the foreign country, we all are in the same stage now. Glad to hear that. Now, in next 10 minutes, I would like to throw this platform open to the eminent speakers to have a cross discussion in this. Uh, Sidharth Sablania being from the industry that is providing several courses online, and also Mr. Sanjiv leading heading a business school, and also Dr. Ravi and Dr. Garg. For next 10 minutes, I would uh, open this platform for your cross discussion. Maybe anyone can start.
Okay. Can I? Okay. I'll take the lead. Okay. Thank you, Professor Sanjeev ji, Professor Ravi, and Mr. Sidharth, for a very informative discussions and points. Now, here I just would like to mention, just to take the point forward of Dr. Ravi, that we have got large number, about 40,000 institutions he mentioned in India. Now, if I can further break it down, I will say that out of these, 70% institutions are in the private sector, private landscape. Now, that is a huge number, and about 33% of them, if I remember the figures correctly, they are located in the rural areas. Now, one size cannot fit all. That is a very important point to understand. Now, we can talk of multidisciplinary, we can talk of so many things, giving this and that, but to a person, a student who's coming from a humble background, and that is where the most of India belongs to, his first priority is to get a job actually. That job. So we need to focus our multidisciplinary approach towards value addition for the student to get a job. Now, that is very important. And to my mind, I think irrespective of the background, the management or the business school, or finance or anything, I think the very important multidisciplinary aspect which is relevant to all is the acquiring of the soft skills. Those soft skills in terms of the aptitude, the attitude, the kind of empathy, flexibility, critical thinking, these are grossly lacking, and people are not aware, students are not aware. Now, for example, just to quote for understanding, a doctor, he may be a MD, he may have any kind of specialization, but unless he has got that aspect of empathy in him, he'll not be popular among the students, among the patients. No, that point needs to be understood, and that needs to be told to everybody, all the students, irrespective of the background, that what is the importance of the soft skills. Because we get a lot of points from the industry. Once they go, when the student join the industry, they find that there's a complaint that the students are not having the right kind of ethics. So suddenly somebody is there, and the next day he'll be off. He'll not be seen. His mobile would be switched off. So that kind of a probably understanding is extremely important, which we need to give in the multidisciplinary, position in the entire umbrella. Second point, which I would like to have the opinion of my, eminent panelist is that. Why are we talking only of creating the jobs? I think in most of the institutions now we need to create another vertical, besides the higher education, of entrepreneurship. Why we should work on that. Let's put together, let's have some kind of a percentage, if not percentage, some number of students who should be motivated right from the early days, like from the MBA program, maybe start of the program. It can be a kind of an internal specialization if the university is not permitting, or maybe it can be a kind of a credits which can be assigned for a journey can be laid for the students to start their own company. Why don't we work on that direction, where we can have some kind of a patents filed by the students, maybe some research culture, where they can download papers and they can see that in this particular area of interest the work has not been done, therefore there is a potential for going for a business in that. So this kind of a third vertical in the institutions, probably this would be a good idea. And may I have the views of our members in the panel? What would be their thoughts on this? Is some kind of a work already being done in the institutions in this direction? This can be one point for discussion. And the second important point from the engineering perspective, I always say very, very fondly and very popularly that besides your mother tongue, like in Delhi NCR, we are there where the Hindi is spoken, English is a global language. We always say that the third important language for every engineer, in fact, I say even to the pharmacy and the management students also, one must have certain amount of knowledge of the coding also, some programming skills also. That is also absolutely important for everybody to understand. Now, today, once you find a student of electrical engineering or mechanical engineering and civil engineering, if he says, I want a job only in the core sector, those jobs are not there unless you have got those skills of programming with you, where you can implement the knowledge of the automation of the technology into your core sector. You will not be able to get a good job. So anything which we need to do, you need to have a technology with you. So that kind of a thought process is there in the engineering, and that is where I say is very, very important. The multidisciplinary aspect is important from that point of view. You do your core job, you do your pharmacy job, you do your MBA, and you do your computer applications. But in addition, you need to have a knowledge of the artificial intelligence. You need to have what is the difference between machine learning and what is the difference between machine learning and deep learning. Those kind of applications of the software into your core domain, that is absolutely essential. I'm sure that would be one of the practical ways for the students to get convinced and the parents to get convinced, so that they can motivate and the students can align their learning on this very, very important path, so that they get employed and also they can start their own companies instead of being the job takers. I think we can create this environment that our students, they become the job givers. Even if we are able to probably have say 1% of our students heading towards this entrepreneurship, I think this will contribute in a long manner as far as the all institutions, 40,000 institutions in the country, if they put their hands together, I think it will solve the problem, because no government can give that kind of a jobs. It's only the entrepreneurship which can create and solve this kind of a problem. So this I would like to throw open to my dear panel members, who can probably throw some light on these views of mine. Thank you very much.
I think very, very interesting points made, Dr. Garg. Let me pick up one or two of them and share my 2 cents here. Is very, very rightly pointed out ki when you look at institutions and their distribution and the way they are located and all, both in terms of their geographical location as well as their infrastructure capabilities, capacity building and capacity augmentation are the two major challenges for all institutions, for which the new policy provides an option of merging institutions or institutions getting merged, so that towards the end of this whole exercise in a few years down the line, we have large and multidisciplinary institutions. That's what the NEP mentions. We need to have the aim is to have large and multidisciplinary institutions. Having said that, in hinterlands or in remote places, if the large institutions will not be viable, and multidisciplinary in terms of capacity building may also be difficult to achieve. What do we do? What would be the solution? One solution, perhaps, which I see, in fact, a couple of institutions have approached us some time ago. We call it as institutional mentoring or partnerships, where in fact students enrolled in institutions which are in hinterland, they are serving a different purpose. I mean, more of a social purpose of accessibility of education, providing accessibility to and affordability to education to students and aspirants in the hinterlands. So mentoring by private and good and big institutions, every district can claim. I mean, when you say 70% of the institutions are actually in the private space, they have two interesting choices. One is to merge, other is to mentor. If you have enough capabilities and leverage on those capabilities, and start mentoring the less privileged or less what you call endowed institutions, so that you deliver value to not only institutions but also to the larger academic world or academic society. So institutional mentoring is one solution that I think to augment the capacity and also build the capacity. Second aspect of entrepreneurship is another very interesting thing which already has picked up in the last few years, especially among the B schools, and I'm sure in the forward-looking group like KIET, and JK Business School and Symbiosis, for that matter, we have been doing it for quite some time now, promoting entrepreneurship and having a startup cell and so on. Few startups already coming out of the portals of our institutions and all. But entrepreneurship as a culture should be, there is no second thought, and I fully agree with Dr. Garg when he says that entrepreneurship should be seen as another alternative. It's not about job seeking, it's about solution providing, and by by being a solution provider, you be an entrepreneur. And very interestingly, again, a market trend which we call it as fast emerging gig economy also supports this entrepreneurial mindset. So gig economy is when people or companies will employ people based on certain value deliveries rather than employees. Now that's where, apart from your skill set, you need to have that entrepreneurial mindset and entrepreneurial approach, and elevated risk appetite and so on. So that has to be cultivated at the education, at the higher education level itself. So that track should be a must, or a rather I would say a compulsory component apart from your we call it as character building. Unfortunately, see, when we say soft skills and all that, in education, what do you call stage wise learning, the character building and personality traits should be done at schooling level itself, and that's what the aim is. But somewhere we are missing out a point there, and we are having input that comes from secondary education or tertiary education into higher education. So they are not groomed, or the character building is left half baked, and that's where we find problem with people with less empathy and so on. So maybe a track as a hygiene factor should be there in all higher education institutions. But I think I see institutional mentoring as one solution, and promoting entrepreneurship as a culture on every campus, in every course, irrespective of whether it is engineering, business management, or medicine, any stream. Entrepreneurship should be part of it to develop entrepreneurial mindset. I think that's a takeaway for the discussion today. Over to you, Professor Marwah. Your comments on what Professor Garg has mentioned.
I would take a little different stance on this, because I have not believed ever that we can actually plan entrepreneurs in the campus. But I have certainly emphasized that we should promote creative problem solving, and if the creative problem solving is the approach, some entrepreneurs could emerge. It could be 1%, as Dr. Garg mentioned. It could be 5%. Let it be left to the student community or the students who are enrolled with us. But I have never emphasized on creating entrepreneurs in the campus. But certainly I have always believed that the creative problem solving should be the approach, not only for the students who are entrepreneurial in nature or we identify to be entrepreneurial in nature, but for the entire student community that comes to study with us. And I think I remember Steve Jobs got introduced to calligraphy while he was in the campus. Dropped out, but of course, before dropping out, he loved to attend those calligraphy classes. And had he not attended those calligraphy classes, we probably would not have seen so many fonts. And these fonts were the differentiators of Apple's initial product. And then, of course, the Windows and every other system followed. And today, we have multiple fonts with us on all computers that we buy today. So, exposure to art, exposure to calligraphy perhaps gave us amazing number of fonts on our systems today. So I would not limit to, what can we structurally provide, but yes, creative problem solving to the business issues, business problems, societal problems should be the learning approach for students and the teaching approach for our faculty members. The outcome could vary. I mean, some colleges might end up turning about, 5% entrepreneurs. Others probably could have only 1%, but those 1% could probably draw big. So I will not get to the number one, but certainly problem solving should be the key. as far as the business schools are concerned. I'm very specific to business schools, and I'm sure it probably can get extended to the engineering colleges, where they also learn to solve the problems around the society, around the industry, and perhaps, what the careers could definitely fall in place. It could fall in place. They could become entrepreneurs. They could become CEOs. But CEOs with entrepreneurial mindset, perhaps that's what the industry always has been looking up. I am sure Sidharth probably would extend more on it. My time for 2 minutes is ended. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I think what we already discussed in terms of the personalization that we want to give, and we need to inculcate certain critical thinking process, certain entrepreneurial mindset, and as Professor Sanjiv rightly said, it's not like we can select students who can become entrepreneurs. It's not like that. It's about it's about developing that mindset. I would say it's about developing that entrepreneurial mindset. That okay, as a student, I am here, so I can explore these things as well. So if a student is having this kind of a mindset, that is what will help us in the future, and that's what is good for the industry in general. And this thing again comes through with the information. So if the student is provided with this information that okay, these are the sort of options that are available, because right now what is happening is students have a limited information and they are taking decisions, and they are taking they're whatever they are doing, they are deciding things based on that information that they have. And that's where the role of Collegedunia and other online platforms, and in fact like digital or online in general, comes in, where students are searching for various things. So if they get access to this information, then only these things can come. And second step would definitely be like where the institutions are there, where faculty who are interacting with them, they come into the picture, and then they will be helping them in inculcating this mindset in the future. Like I'm talking from my personal experience, like when I was doing my MBA, so in IIM Ahmedabad, so like the professors, they say that we are also a participant. So that is the kind of mindset that everyone should have, like in terms of learning is an ongoing process. So even when we are even a professor who is in the classroom, even that professor is also learning from the experiences or the discussions that are happening in the classroom. So as a student as well, like if I'm learning something, so it might not be directly relevant or directly applicable in what I do tomorrow or maybe in a year, but that will have a long-term impact. May not be directly, but indirectly. So if we have this kind of a mindset, if we can inculcate this kind of a mindset, that will be really helpful in the future. And this mindset we need to carry throughout, and this mindset should be there in the administration as well as in the industry, in the corporates. So that would be how I would like to conclude.
Thank you very much, Sidharth. Glad to know you are an IIT from Delhi and also IIM from Ahmedabad. Glad to have this wonderful panel for this very enriching session that was on the future vision for the higher education and the multidisciplinary aspects of it. So with this, we would be coming to end of the sessions for day one. Tomorrow we would be having yet another series of panel discussion and presentations, industry presentation, uh, which will be starting with exploring trends in online learning, upskilling, employability, emerging skills, and future of work. So with this, I would like to thank Professor Sanjiv Marwah, Director JK Business School, Dr. Ravi Kumar Jain, Director SIBM Hyderabad, Dr. A. Garg, Director KIET Group of Institution, and Sidharth Sablania, who is a resident from the College Dunia. Thank you very much all for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Sudheer. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sudheer. Thank you all.